Welcome in, everybody. 39-31. Who'd have thunk it? It was a barn burner in the Peach Bowl. It was back and forth multiple times. The last quarter and then the two overtimes, Rod, the Longhorns pull it out. And as Nathan Larson says right there, we ain't dead yet. The Longhorns gave up a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter. Arizona State played magnificently and valiantly. I think we all would agree with that. Cam's got to be. Also, their quarterback, great player. Their defense came. Texas hit that mid-game lull that really started in the second quarter, extended all the way into the third. And even though Arizona State didn't get a lot of points in the third quarter, Rod, they did control the ball and the clock. Texas went 4 straight drives in this game without a first down. And then with roughly 5 minutes to go, Texas starts moving the ball. Quinn Ewers throws a poor pass, a poor deep ball. Arizona State takes it, brings it back home, and ends up making a score in the 2-point conversion, tying it up. And Bert Auburn hooked it left again, laid it out right. I don't know that I've ever seen a ball go off the upright to close out a game. Rod. I'll let you ask your thoughts. Brian Robison will be joining us momentarily. This is brought to you by our friends at Flight by Yingling. Thank you to them. Rod B., your initial thoughts, because I tell you what, my heart's beating a little fast today. I don't know if the ticker can take it.
Yeah, no, I got to go have a drink after this to calm my nerves a little bit. But I'll just say this. First of all, the effort and by Texas to end up winning that game. I thought it took a lot of fortitude, testicular fortitude at times, but did show that they have the clutch gene. This was an ugly game, like period, ugly, because it was ugly for the offense probably the entire game except for the very start of it, and then the very end of it. Like the very start and the very end of the game is basically the offense. They played their best football at like the start and at the end. So and that was enough for you to win it. Defensively, though, we saw this defense, and it's because of the inconsistency of the offense, they were exposed. They were out there a lot of plays. I don't know if they defended that many plays, Bobby, all season long. And they look tired. They look mental errors. We've not seen them miss that many tackles. Now they're going up against Scatterboo. Can we all give that young man a round of applause? I mean, this dude was throwing up on the sideline and all kind of stuff. He couldn't even get himself up on his own and just gave a Herculean effort. I think we all got a lot of respect for him and the quarterback, Sam Levy, we talked about. So I told y'all he was the second best quarterback Texas played behind Kublik because he was just a playmaker. He's got that it quality, man, that can make some plays. But aside from that, I think we learned a lot about the team. And this is the thing I learned the most. First of all, they got the clutch gene. All right. And I love that they can just go win a game. Even if they play an ugly game the entire game.
4th and 13, Rod. 4th and 13.
Defense hurting, defense giving up plays, which we haven't seen all season long. But as the competition gets tougher, of course. All right. The games get tougher. Your defense is going to get exposed at one time, playing better quarterbacks and better offenses and better players. But you were able to make plays when it counted. And I would say this, though. A lot of the things that have plagued this team, all throughout the season and recently, you saw them come to a point of critical mass, though, how it can cost you a championship, right? Your field goal kicking has been an issue. It came up. It cost you. Turnovers have been an issue. You're 111th in the country. Came up at the worst possible time. Turnover in this game, right? Your third quarter, you've been outscored. What was it, 43-6 now in the third quarter? In the last 6 games, came back to haunt you. So it's great you won. It's great. I think we're all celebrating and we're happy. But you see, as the competition gets tougher, those flaws that, throughout the season are just annoying and regrettable as the competition gets tougher and you're down the yellow brick road to win a championship. Oh, those flaws start to become glaring and Shakespearean. And that's why that Arizona State. Now, Arizona State played a hard game, but that's why they were back in this game, because all your flaws, they were for the world to see. They were on.
They came home to roost.
They came.
Yep,
there you go.
Came home to roost.
Yep. All your issues. Yep.
Brian, what do you? I know you're down near Lake Sam Rayburn enjoying this game in your bait and tackle shop. What talk to Brian Robison, former Longhorn, former NFL player. What did you think of this one, Brian? I mean, how many times were you pacing or what, buddy?
Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, that game was bad for business today, okay? I'm in the middle of my shop screaming, throwing my hat. I mean, like, anybody that came into Tackle Addict today, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry if you had a bad customer experience, but I had a bad customer experience all day today. So, yeah. I mean, listen, I think I'm owed some restitution from this Texas football team. You know, we got to do some talking.
Brian, I tell you what, we talked a little bit about the clutch gene. Matthew Golden, what a game from him. Quinn Ewers under pressure in the first overtime, and then the second overtime. He also had it. It looks like we lost Brian. We're having a connection issue with Brian there. Like Sam Rayburn.
Yeah. So he's out on the scene.
But he'll get it back. He'll come back in a second. But the reality of it is, Rod, there were a lot of very good plays by the Longhorns, but Arizona State possessed the ball and kind of took Texas out of whatever game plan the Longhorns had for 4 consecutive series. Texas did not get a first down. That, in my opinion, Rod and Brian, no question, a big piece of this game. But let's talk a little bit about the stats. Give folks that. We're also going to be joined by CJ Vogel here in a little bit. Matt, our producer, will you please pull those up real quick? Quinn Ewers finishes 20 of 30 for 322. Surprising, at one point, Cam Scatterbo had more yards than everybody on the Texas team combined. Only 30 rushes for only 53 yards. It was very clear that Arizona State decided not to run the ball, or not to allow Texas to run the ball. But look at that. Matthew Golden, 7 for 149, a touchdown, and then that clutch 2-point conversion as well. Arizona State, they ended up the day with 510 yards of total offense. That's the most the Longhorns have given up this year by far. I think by almost 50 yards, if not more. It was a really good game from a number of aspects, but the Longhorns, I tell you what, they left it all out there today. Rod B., tell us what you thought on the Matthew Golden, Quinn Ewers hookup and how they were able to get it going in this game.
I want to get Brian's thoughts started too, because I noticed a trend toward the end of the game when Texas couldn't get anything going offensively. It seemed like it became the Gunnar Helm and Matthew Golden show, because and remember, Greg Davis used to always say this. I'm sure a lot of coaches say it, that in clutch moments when the fit hits the shan, you need to think players, not plays. To hell with them damn plays, man. Find a way to get to your best players. I want to say, I don't know, Brian, you thought about that this is what Sark reverted to later in that game. Because I felt like it was just Matthew Golden and Gunnar Helm getting the damn ball down the stretch when it mattered, when nothing else was working.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it was a perfect setup for him, because you've got a guy that's really good at shallow and intermediate routes in Gunnar Helm that creates a mismatch issue for linebackers and DBs alike. And then you've got Matthew Golden, who's a guy that can stretch the football field. And I think when you look at it, early in the game, they had deep ball after deep ball that was wide open. I mean, they had guys that were getting behind the DBs, everything else like that. Arizona State made it a point that they were not going to let them get behind. They were not going to let Texas run the ball, and then they were not going to let the receivers behind them, right? Well, when you can start hitting a guy down the stretch like they did with a guy like Gunnar Helm that creates an issue, the guys on the back end start thinking about that. They start creeping up a little bit. We got to make tighter windows on these guys. And then that's when you saw Matthew Golden really start to be able to shine in that last quarter and in overtime. And obviously that was a big play. And hey, you want to talk about clutch moments. I didn't get to make my comment on this, but you want to talk about clutch moments. Let's talk about that touchdown throw. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about the offensive line picking up that blitz. And by the offensive line, I mean the running backs too. Arizona State said, we are bringing it. We're not going to allow you to have time to get to a 13-yard route. And they picked that blitz up as clean as you can possibly pick it up. And Quinn had enough time to really just sit back and wait for him to come open. And that is as clutch as it gets in overtime.
Yeah, you're talking about not just the throw, you're talking about the route, you're talking about the team as a whole.
Everything, yeah.
Everything all mashed together there. Hey, guys, you look at this. There was some consternation about not getting the running game going. What did y'all see there that Texas didn't get the run game going? I mean, we talked all a week and a half about how Arizona State didn't have a single defensive lineman over 300 pounds. What y'all think of that?
I think Arizona State did a very good job of getting in the creases. I think, obviously they're not big, but they're quick. And they were one of those deals when you look at it, they were able to get in the creases and honestly make it clear up for the linebackers and stuff where they could run to the ball, because a lot of times the offensive linemen were chasing. They weren't able to push guys around. They were chasing. And, that's going to be something that I think next week you look at a game like Ohio State and Oregon, that could be something that comes up again, because now the blueprint is out there on that, and they've got kind of some guys that are big and can move as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects the next game, because that's the big deal. Is a lot of people don't think about how this game affects the next game, but we've seen it over and over with this Texas team, is how the next game, it seems like there's some other issue that comes up, right? Well, that's because they learned from the team before them. And I think that's what I think Arizona State laid a little bit of a blueprint out there of how to defend it, from their aspect of being able to run and hit the creases and leave their linebackers clean. Georgia has put the blueprint out there on how to be physical, get north and south with them. So I think it becomes here in the future is how teams dictate how they want to defend the run against Texas, by which way they want to use their guys.
If y'all are just now joining, this is the post-game show brought to you by our friends at Yingling and Faust Distributing. Every beer every light beer for flight is the next generation of light beer. It's with only 95 calories. It's an upscale light beer designed to elevate the customer experience with more taste and just 4.2 carbs. Flight is an easy-to-drink beer with a crisp taste. Try Flight from Yingling, thanks to the fine folks at Flight and our friends at Faust Distributing. Guys, I got to be honest, I'm going to need something here in the post game, because that was a little bit crazy. Let's get to the super chats real quick. Here we go. Bobby Petronic, ugliest win since West Virginia in 2013. I need a drink. Wow. Yeah, I hear you. You ain't the only one, Bobby. Maybe we'll all have a flight. All right, Robert Cass, super chat. Good one. Brandon Huey, I ride with 3. There you go. We just talked about Quinn Ewers and what he was able to do in the 2 overtimes. That was a clutch throw. He was a clutch. He got him down in field goal position twice, too, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just the overtimes where he came up clutch. He got it down in the last 2 possessions.
I'll say this too, Bobby. I think what I liked about I started, Sark kind of wrestling with some things as well. And the plays that he dialed up down the stretch, the tight end leak. Some people were talking, where Gunnar Helm kind of releases late and then runs the drag and ends up turning the drag up the opposite hash there. By the way, I think Boise State ran the same play and scored on it last night. Yep. Y'all saw that?
Yeah.
It's the same concept. Shanahan loves it in the league, but I think it was Sark starting to dial up plays for specific players. I think that's what I'm going to start looking. I'm going to do with our the second watch. I'm going to look at that because I think when the fit at the Shannon and Sark figured out my run game ain't working, they got my run game figured out. Quinn is off on some of these throws. Some of these throws he can make. So when he's having to diagnose a defense and go through progressions, that ain't working out for us. So I got to dial up the perfect plays. Where all Quinn got to do is put the ball on the money. I ain't asking him to do too much. And yeah, you need execution, but I thought it became really focused down the stretch where that's why it became Helm and Golden, and it was Sark in his bag about how I can get those guys open. How do I get those guys? Those are my money guys. That's what NFL coaches do. They get the money guys, as you know, Brian. You're a money guy. Money guys. I like this money guy matched up so that he can go win. And Sark was doing that down the stretch. It was so job well done to him because I was critical of him doing the in-game live watch a little bit too.
Yeah, I believe that. My take on this with the players, not plays, is a good comment. Talking about another player, what about Andrew Makuba? He called game on that interception. That quarterback had not put the ball in harm's way all day, by the way. Had done a really nice job of not putting it in harm's way. Makuba comes up with his 5th interception of the year. Big time play there, in my opinion, for you guys. What did y'all think overall for the Texas defense? 500-plus yards, but it felt like they were nickel and dime to death, and then Arizona State finally hit some big plays in that second half. What did y'all think of the Texas defense? Rod, start with you, buddy.
I think it was the second. It was just they were worn out. I believe by the time they got to the second half, they were already on like 60 plays they had been defending. Like early on, we were keeping track of it in the game live watch. I just felt like they got worn out, and that's what listen, fatigue makes cowards of us all. That's what happens when you're going against a downhill running. Because in the Scatterbo in the first half, in the first quarter, this dude is frustrated, throwing temper tantrums on the sideline. Yeah. He's like, I can't get nothing going. He's upset, and I get it. Because Texas defense, they were doing great in terms of gap integrity, and they were tackling as a village, right? Party at the football mentality. But as they kept, having to defend more plays because the offense, when obviously holding on to the ball, they weren't able to convert. They weren't putting together consistent drives. I think the defense I think they got tired, and that's what happens when you get tired. That's what I saw most of the number. But if we want to get to the mental break, there was some busted coverages down the stretch. I think they caught the DB slipping. They caught the DB sleeping, actually. That 4th and 2 to Cam Scatterbo halfback pass. Yep. Come on, man. That's just Malik Muhammad. He just did not expect them to be throwing the football there. He won't admit it, but I'll tell you. All right, 4th and 2. He thought it's going to be Scatterbo all day, every day. And he just let his, technique, let it become lax because he wasn't focused in that moment. If he was, that ball was underthrown. I mean, it was underthrown. It wasn't a great throw at all. It was just he was so erratic with his technique. He was way out of position when the ball was thrown. If he was in even decent position, he'd have knocked it down, or it'd have been like a different type of contested catch. And then they caught my boy Tav slipping. Because I don't know how much film y'all watch, but how often when they have Scatterbo out at the number 1 receiver by the sideline, Scatterbo, do they throw it deep to him? I didn't see any of that when I watched film on him. Maybe they threw it out there, but I don't think it was successful. I don't think Taft was expecting. That was a true tendency break. I don't know if that was more like a Hail Mary. He caught it and ends up being a big play for him. So I think by the way, I think those mental errors because you're tired. You make mental errors when you're tired. You commit penalties like Janae Barron hooking the receiver in the end zone. He didn't hook that receiver. He had good coverage on him. Ball's probably overdone anyway. Yeah. It was because he was tired. They were just tired down the stretch. And you make mental errors, and you obviously make some technique errors when you're tired like that. So I just think that's what happened. And we hadn't seen that all season long. We hadn't seen that defense have to play that much against a physical team all season long.
Well, I mean, like you said, I mean, they controlled the ball for over 20 minutes in the first half. I mean, for you fraction guys, that's 2/3 of the first half. And so to me, it's a combination of the plays and the time of possession, because in time of possession, probably more so than the plays, because even if your offense is scoring quick, man, you know how it is, Rod. When you turn around, your offense scores in 3 plays, you're like, gosh dang, I haven't even got the oxygen mask on my face, So, and then you got to run back out there, and you're right. I mean, I think there was a couple of things we saw today. I think I'll say 3 things. Okay. I think number 1, I think you saw a few of the things from Clemson last week rear its ugly head again. And what I mean by that is adequate. I'm not going to say they're great receivers. I'm not going to say they're Clemson receivers, but adequate receivers with a mobile quarterback. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that quarterback bought time a lot. The rush got home and they missed, and he was able to buy time, and it resulted in plays, whether with his feet or him throwing the ball. Yep. Okay. You combine that with you basically having to, I'm not going to say sell out, but really be in tune with stopping a certain guy, which is Scatterbo, right? You have to sell out on the run, dang near. All right. And then the third part of it is just being gassed. I think those three things was a culmination of what we saw today. And here, I want to be negative Nancy about Texas, but I got to give Arizona State respect.
Got to.
They played the game they wanted to play.
Yep.
Which is, we're going to pound you. We know that Scatabo is our guy. We're going to give him the rock, and it's up to you to figure out a way to stop him. And they used him in a multitude of ways. Like Rod said, tendency breakers, using him in the pass game, using him as a decoy. They might as well call it the Arizona State Scataboos the way that game went today, if I'm being honest.
I was going to say, Brian, is that like, if that would that have been like pulling a 25-pound bass out of Sam Rayburn? Like, that's Scatabo, right? You'd have been battling with that bass, having to pull him out of the lake. I mean, he's a tough ass dude now.
Yeah, like dude, you got to give that dude respect. Like, you can sit here and be negative about Texas all you want, but you've got to look at Arizona State and just say, and tip your hat and say, hey, y'all are better than we thought you were.
Yeah, the running back just changes the game.
Yeah.
For example, that touchdown where he literally just stayed on his feet somehow, like he was doing a squat press or something, and then the guy takes him into the end zone. That's not normal. That's not
going to what Rod said. You talk about guys being tired. Even on some of those short 2-3 yard runs, or the runs that he didn't get a first down and they went for it on 3rd and short or something, it was 4, 5, 6 guys having to hit him to get him down. When you're having to be physical with a guy like that, that wears on you in the game too, especially the DBs having to come up and fit in the run game.
Malik Muhammad went out at one point during the game. Michael Taft went out at one time, but I don't think anybody ended up with any serious injuries from the game, either on offense or defense. Kelvin Banks came in, or went out at one point, but ended up being okay as well and returning to the game. I've got a question that is kind of interesting here for you guys to think about. From a Texas perspective, is this I don't want to say a wake-up call, but is this maybe Sark needing to think about how he approaches games like this with teams like this in the future? Because he let them hang around. They almost took that game from Texas. And Texas, maybe gave it to them a little bit, but they almost took it because you play with fire enough, you're going to get burnt. And I think that's what happened a little bit.
I think for me, Bobby, watching the last 6 or 7 weeks, I think we've gotten too comfortable with our defense being able to do enough for us to win ball games. And I say that especially with the second half woes. I think you feel like you have the luxury that you can make mistakes on offense because your defense will make up for it. And I think today may be that wake-up call where it's like, hey, like, we're not doing enough to put people away. And if we keep doing what we're doing, this bend but don't break defense is eventually going to break. You put enough stress on a board, and that board will break.
Yep.
And I think that's what we're starting to see. And so I think there's going to – I mean, listen, they're going to play either Oregon or Ohio State. And if they play the way they did this week, they play the way they did last week, they play the way they've done the last 6 or 7 weeks in a row, they're not going to win that game.
Agreed.
It's a different ball game.
Yep.
Okay, I total 180 from last week. I said – these teams don't worry me. They freaking worry me now. Okay? All right? And because you're going to have some guys that I think are going to be much more physical up front. Nothing against Arizona State, but they're going to be more physical up front on both sides with Oregon and Ohio State. And that is going to be a problem when they have skill players that can go with it too. So they're going to have to find a way to really learn how to put a team away and not have these second half woes and not lean so much on the defense.
Yeah. Hey, this is y'all's show. I just wanted to step in here and say thanks to all the people that support this, continues to support us. We went over 68,000 in the on watch with us, like 130,000 views. Thank you. Thanks to Brian and Rod. I want to say this. I talked about Scatabo because I wanted to give that guy credit. That's one of the great efforts I've ever seen in college football. The guy, people that think he's like has a twitch or something, he doesn't. I know somebody at Arizona State. He does that to kind of focus. It's a focus thing with him. But that guy was puking on the sideline the whole second half of the game, man. I mean, that guy gave an effort unlike anything we really see very often. So, like B-Rob said, tip of the hat to those guys. Sam Levitt. I mean, that guy played under duress the whole game. That guy's going to play on Sundays. I didn't play on Sundays and know that they have to know that he's going to play on Sundays. But I wanted to say this is I feel like there's a lot of negativity about the game, and I get it. I'll watch with us. I was right there. But two things for me. Congrats to Quinn Ewers on the 2 possessions, his last 2 possessions of this game. He needed that for him. Yeah. He needed that for his legacy at Texas. No matter what happens after this, that was huge for Quinn. After the Washington game last year, if it would have ended with a whimper, I'm happy for Quinn that he made those plays. He needs that. He's done a lot for the Texas program. We have to be real with him when it's good and when it's bad. But that was huge for him. And then the other thing is I just want the fan base to think about it like this. Texas is in the national semifinals for a second year in a row. And even though it was ugly, and I think Texas got outplayed, outcoached, whatever you want to call it. I mean, give a team credit, right? Give a staff credit.
Yep.
This is big for Texas recruiting in the future, program in the future. It's hard to win a national championship, but this game, if you had lost it, would have been talked about a lot. You found a way to win. And now you get that much more media attention headed into college football semifinals. So while a lot of it we're thinking Texas should have lost, they deserve to lose, blah, 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 and I get it all, Texas, that would have been a bad loss in a playoff for a team that was better than the team they played against and was favored. This was a big win for Sark as he continues to build his program. And with that, I just want to say thanks to everybody and thank you guys and Happy New Year.
Have a good one. Thanks for stepping in. Appreciate you. Well said there by Jerry about Quinn Ewers, guys. No doubt about it. And I want to say this. He also led the team down on 2 drives in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes remaining for field goal attempts to go ahead and even win the game. And then he comes back with a 4th and 13 play that I think will go down in Texas history. That was the first ever overtime in college football playoff, by the way. That was another mention there. Another thing that happened, even though Trey Weiser did not have a great game, he did go over 1,000 yards this season. And Jake Majors becomes the player who has played the most football games in the University of Texas history.
Wow.
How about that?
Good job.
That's something. As 2 guys like y'all that have worn the orange or burnt orange and white, that's something to be proud of. Even though it probably wasn't his best game, he did it. Went out there with the way he did. All right, let's get back to the chat and a couple of questions or comments here. Bobby Petronic asks, have y'all ever seen the drag and go TD to Helm? Rod, have you ever seen it before?
It's called Sark has done it before. He's actually, I won't say he might have scored on it before, but he's definitely used it before. They call it a tight end leak. I believe is the exact term for it. In the playbooks, it's called a tight end leak. But it does. It looks like he's running a drag to the opposite hash, and then he turns it up. And it's usually a great way for linebackers to kind of lose him in the mix. They assume he's going on a drag route. So like, oh, the next guy will pick him up. Then he ends up running kind of a wheel route on the opposite sideline. So like I said, they call it a tight end leak, I believe is the name. So Sark is in his repertoire. Shanahan loves it. He runs it a lot. You'll see a lot of folks in that. Sean McVay and kind of that Shanahan tree they use a lot. Ben Johnson in Detroit, they love that tight end league. You got to get tight ends. It's a great way to scheme them open.
All right, this one from Scott Sturgeon. We got problems with survive and advance. That is true. Didn't plan on drinking today, but the alcohol came out during the fourth quarter and OT. I've got a question for y'all because I was actually arguing this with our producer. Should Texas have gone for 2 when they went up by 15 and tried to go for 2 to make it 17? Let me ask y'all that. Think about that because he was like, look, if you make it, they're going to have to make they'll use their one chance to making a 2-point conversion. Or do you make them make 2-point conversions? What do you think of that? Should they have done it?
That's interesting. Yeah.
Because you made it. You could have made it a 3-score game.
I think it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other. I mean, I get the premise on it, but you're also thinking at the time that you probably have the game in hand. You know, if it was me, if we're gonna ask from a personal perspective, if it was me, yes, I would have went for 2. Let's try to make it a 3-score game, right? But at the same time, if you don't make it and they do go for 2 2-point conversions, now you lose the game. So there's 2 ways to look at that, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great point. What we saying? What would we be saying right now if he had gone for it and then missed it and then lost the game? So,
I'll tell you what would be said. That was a dumb call.
Oh boy! Hey, this went from D Money Can't Get Money. Happy for the most stressful win of the season. Is this the most stressful win of the season?
Yeah,
unquestionably, right? The first real game that came down like that, in my opinion. Mason Madrid, Quinn threw the ball with more zip later in the 4th and all OT. Needs those types of throws all the time. He was late over the middle multiple times in this game and kind of arced that one interception you could kind of see coming in previous throws he made similarly, I thought.
But why did he throw? Why did he keep doing that?
He had that slant to Ryan Wingo. That was a great ball. Great ball.
He had Helm on a check down wide open on that pick too. And why did he keep throwing? That must have been a predetermined read, guys. He kept throwing that post route when they had a safety over the top of it and the corner or the upfield shoulder. That definitely couldn't have been you going through reads saying that's the open guy. It had to be predetermined, I'm thinking. That's crazy.
Rod, I have said this. You can look it up on Longhorn Network. I have said this for multiple years that I think there are times that Quinn Ewers goes through his reads, and then I think there are times where Quinn has a predetermined play call that the play is designed to go to that guy, and that is where the ball is going. Because there's too many times that you see him have an amazing game and he's making perfect reads and he's doing this, he's doing that. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, where did that come from? And it's like, there was no reason to throw that. And I think they are predetermined reads. That's just my 2 cents. I don't know that for a fact, but just from an outsider perspective, watching the games, I've said it multiple times that I feel that there are times that is being done.
I agree with you, brother. I'm glad I got somebody else who can throw it out there too. Cause I'm like, Quinn wouldn't be considered open if you're going through reads. So I think that's ultimately when the defense calls the perfect call. Stark assumed it will be something else, and if it is a predetermined read, like I said, we're just guessing here. But if it is, then that's what happened. It's not like Sark's being stubborn. And I've caught Sark a couple of times when he's asked about the deep ball. I got to go back because I'm sure there's a record of it, and I remember hearing it. Him saying, just because I dial it up doesn't mean you have to throw it. He had said that in like almost frustration of people talking about, why are you so stubborn and adamant about throwing these deep passes? He's like, listen, I've called it, you ain't got to throw it. So I do think there's a little bit, between the play caller and the QB is like, hey, I called this deep shot. It is predetermined. But as my man Shano always tells me, be coachable. Don't be a robot, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I told you it was going to be open, but it wasn't. And Mike Leach has a lot of stories like that. He was like, every quarterback for Mike Leach says they have a story about him cussing them out, dog cussing them during a game because they didn't change a play. And he's like, and they're like, Coach, you called the play. And he was like, then you out there, you seen the play wasn't going to work. Why the hell didn't you change the play? And then they learn like, I should change the play. And I almost feel like some of that maybe with Quinn. It's like, Quinn, it wasn't open. Take the check down. Say, sorry, it wasn't open, man. I know you said it was going to be open, but you were wrong. Can we look at the film? The film don't lie. Eye in the sky don't lie.
One of the things that happened in the 3rd and 4th quarter, especially in the 4th, when Texas did start moving the ball, they started throwing to the backs in the flat quite a bit. I don't know if y'all noticed that they decided the run wasn't really working, and they started throwing to the backs and the back out in the flat. Were those Quinn checking it down? I don't know, but I agree with y'all. I mean, it's clear that wasn't open. And so why do you throw it? Maybe it's predetermined, to Brian's point. I agree. Jay Tizzle says, we'll watch after the bowl game. I'm 37 and my heart gave out. Try being 55 and watching that game. I'm just going to tell you, and not be the athlete that Rod Babers and Brian Robison are. Why don't you do that? Kyle, rush up. Does Sark rely on his D too much? Brian, you mentioned a little bit of that. I think it affects his offensive play calls in the second half. Too aggressive, conservative at weird moments or situations. Oh. I was surprised they even dialed up a deep ball up by 8, and the run actually started like it was going in plus territory. You're not surprised?
I told you it's in his nature. I keep telling y'all this. Y'all like, he's gonna just run the rock. Like, he's gonna just run the rock. Y'all know, sir. Y'all been watching him for 3 years. He gonna throw that ball. He came out in the second half after the run game. It was like, it's gonna run the ball because the pass ain't working. He came out in a play action pass to start the second half. Right? In pistol, in 12 personnel. That's who Sark is. And I'm fine with it, by the way. I know who I married. My wife. She's got issues like that too. I love her. I know who I married. And we got to know who our coach is. He don't throw the rock. He gonna tuck the rock. He gonna run. And you know what? I don't blame him in this game because I don't know if the run game was. I don't know if it was giving you the dividends or return on investment that you were hoping. They did a good job against the Texas wide zone. We got to go back to the drawing board a little bit. Now I will say that we talked about how Arizona State had defended the wide zone really well in Big 12 play, actually. But some of the gap and power schemes and inside zone was working really well against them. They did a good job, man. They had 3 weeks to prepare, and they came up with a really good game plan to stop Texas run game. I don't know what they did. I looked at this film. Brian probably knows better than me because he can watch D-line play. But they got on Texas. They did a good job of it. I like what you said, Brian, about them, basically making sure the linebacks were free. They did a lot of slanting, and it's like they were shooting gaps. It worked.
Yeah. And I want to bring up this point, back to the question that was just posted. Let's look back to last year when this defense wasn't so good. Can we agree that this offense is just as talented, if not more talented, than last year's offense?
Running back wise, I don't know.
Running back wise, probably a little bit less, but
yeah, overall, yes, because wide receiver.
Okay.
More, yeah.
Why does this offense look so much more different than last year's? And that's where I say I think they're leaning on the defense too much. And I'm going to go even deeper on this. There is a disconnect between the first half offense and the second half offense. It looks like a totally different football team. And that's where I think, and it really just caught my eye last week, and I really saw it today, is I feel like they have so much confidence that the defense is going to get the job done for them, that they're going to be able to stop them. They might bend at times, but they're not going to break, Well, guess what? You had 20 minutes of offense put on you in the first half. And guess what? Some of that, excuse my language, I'm not going to say it, but some of that crap broke in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And to me, that's where I think, and I'm starting to see and starting to get the feeling that we are leaning on the defense a little too much instead of putting on your foot on the gas with the offense coming out in the second half and saying, hey, we got to find a way to put up 40. Let's put up 40, and then we can dial it back.
Yeah. To Brian's point, though, because I think Brian, he even talked about that before the question about he thought the Texas offense, maybe the coach are leaning too much on, the defense will save us. They'll save us. They'll stop from scoring. Because we talk about the identity of the offense all the time. I've come to figure out, I guess, now 15 games into this season with the Longhorns, right, that they're a good offense, but they're not necessarily great or elite because they don't have an elite aspect, right? They're just really good at a lot of different things. What they are elite at, though, and you go look at the stats, is explosive plays. They're like top 5 in the country in explosive plays. What essentially won the game?
Explosive plays.
Yep.
Started the game. Basically, you were hitting 2 explosive plays. You ended the game. Boom, couple of explosive plays. I believe 40% of Quinn Ewers' passing yards came on 4 plays. The first 2 plays and the last 2 plays. No, I'm not joking. They were just big explosive plays, right? So when you think your identity is the running game and you don't have that, Like, what's your counter? That's why and B. Rob gets mad about this. He's like, why they just throwing it, taking shots downfield, man? Let's go with an offense. Come up with something, get into a rhythm. And they did that against Georgia. And you were upset about it. That's because all they rely on really when the fit hits the shan is we're explosive.
Yeah.
We're explosive. We got it's basically what won you this game was that you're an explosive offense. Are you efficient? Not really. Are you, do you have an identity? Kind of with the running game, but man, that's in 3 of your last 5 games you've been able to run the football, but that doesn't mean you have an identity if you can't run it every game. So I think the identity, they're just a really explosive offense. And so those 7 or 8 plays a game where they hit, that basically determines the game for Texas. And if they don't have a lot of those, like they did against Clemson, then they're not going to separate. And in this game, that's basically what won the game for them, guys. Those 5 explosive plays at the beginning of the game and at the end of the game. And Sark knows it too. That's why when the game was online, he said, F it. I'm going with my shot play. I got it. You know what I mean? Like, he's stubborn, but he's like, no, this is who we are.
Yep.
Who we are. I'm going to take some shots, baby. That's who we are. And you know what? I'm not mad at them because they're, they're 13-2. I'm not mad at them.
Yeah, I was going to say 13.
Hey, they won. They won.
They won. What about? I can't get mad if you won. Good. I'm happy. I'm happy.
Hey, this one from Jackson S. Golden will be going in the draft after today's game. He finished with 7 catches for 149 yards. He made a couple man plays too, man catches. The one down the sideline was a terrific catch, but the one in overtime, guys, with for the 2-point conversion, that was a big time catch. He went up and extended to get that. Guy even got his arm, and he still brought it down.
NFL catches. He's making NFL catches. He's an NFL guy.
You think so?
And my thing is with Golden, dude. Like, I really liked him last year when he was with U of H. First look at him was in the return game. Just explosive. I'm really surprised that Texas did not use him more this year on special teams in the return game than they really haven't. But I'm surprised by that because that was really, I think, where he started to shine at U of H and then became a receiver. But I cannot, Rod, maybe you'll remember this, or Bobby. I really feel like he came into his own about, man, I want to say it was almost midpoint of the season. There was a game where Isaiah Bond was kind of hobbled, and he had 3 or 4 plays in that game. And I remember getting on this postgame show and being like, get the ball to Golden. Like, I really feel like Golden has proven himself to be the number 1 receiver on this team, in my opinion. And I think you saw that today. I really think you talk about big-time players showing up in big-time games, and he's the guy that has continuously done it over and over again down the late stretch of the season. And I would not be surprised if next week, no matter who they play, like, they try to find a way to get the ball in his hands often and early. I'm talking about like maybe out of the first 10 plays trying to get it in his hands like 6 or 7 times. Like, get that guy going and it's only good for everybody else because if they realize, hey, they got to get it in number 2's hands, now it opens the rest of the offense up because now you're going to start having, especially if he has success, they're going to start having guys trying to double coverage him, blanket coverage him, do whatever they needed to do in order to not let him to beat the defenders down deep or anything like that. And that's when your gunner helms come in play. That's when your extension of your running game with the running backs to the flats, because now the flats get cleared out because they got to chase the receiver. And he is really good. Let me put this out there too. He is really good about beating DBs off the line of scrimmage.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he's got clean footwork. It's clean.
Yes.
No wasted movement with him. Go watch him. Not a lot of wasted movement with that dude. And his contested catch ability is now we know underrated. He makes contested catches too.
Yeah. I've got to ask you this. One of the things I mentioned, a guy named Mike visited with me. I believe his name was Mike. Visited with me this morning at the College Football Hall of Fame, and he also had asked me the question: how many 4th down attempts do we think Arizona State will have in this game? And I said over and under was 3. I said it would probably be around 3. Matt, if you don't mind pulling up the stats here on number of fourth down attempts for Arizona State today. I stopped counting at 6, I think. What was the final number? Oh, yeah. 6 fourth down, 3 of 6.
Took that Joey McGuire recipe, baby.
Yeah. And how clutch were those 3? Honestly, those 3 that they made, because they extended drives, and it goes back to wearing down that Texas defense. So they knew what kind of ball game they had to do. They knew they had to go with it on fourth and downs in order to give themselves a shot.
Yep. All right, we got some other super chats to get to here. Edmund Lee, thank you, Edmund. That Cam Scatterboot is a good player. Hats off to him. A win is a win, though. Our third quarter is crap. I'm going to quote Brian Robison on that comment in the future. Offense is hit or miss. Defense is still our strength. On to the AT&T Cotton Bowl. We survived to play another game. That game will be Friday night, a week from Friday night. And it looks like right now, guys, unless something changes, it's going to be against the Ohio State Buckeyes. The Buckeyes right now. What's the score now? Is it 24-0?
Whoa.
17-0 or 24-0? Yep, 24-0. Okay. They are running and throwing the ball at will against the Oregon Ducks. We'll be able to talk about that a little bit later. This one from Roy Womack. Are we still blaming the injury on Bond, or is there more going on behind the scenes? I think he's still injured. I absolutely believe that's the case. They would play him otherwise. I would also say this. I mean, Ryan Wingo came in. I thought he made a nice play. I don't know that they've missed Isaiah Bond maybe as much as they think, or as the stats might suggest. What do you think, Rod?
Yeah, I don't think they've missed him as much. When he doesn't have the world-class elite speed, I don't know if he brings, as much to the table. And I think with the injury, he doesn't have necessarily that elite speed. They probably think Wingo is probably better served with his skill set being out there instead of Bond. But maybe next week, he'll be ready to go. He'll be closer to being 100%.
Rod, what do you think? I feel like what they're trying to do, or what they're able to do right now, is they are utilizing both Silas Bolden and Ryan Wingo to make up the difference for what Isaiah Bond does. And what I mean for that is, in the passing game, I feel like they're doing a lot of stuff with Wingo that they do with Isaiah Bond, with the jet sweeps, things like that, the reverses, the misdirection stuff. You're seeing Silas Bolden get a lot of those takes as well. So do you feel like maybe they're comfortable with saying, hey, until he is 100%, we've got what we need in order to take up the slack on that?
Yeah, they're so deep, man. I think you're right. They're just so deep. They don't feel like we got to force this guy on the field, because we have players with the skills to be able to execute, those specific concepts.
I know Brian's got to get going, but before you get going, though, Brian, I got to put this out to you and Rod both. Which team won special teams today? I mean, Texas blocked the field goal and scored a touchdown. Okay? But which team won special teams today? I mean, maybe Arizona State, despite giving up a touchdown and missing a field goal, right? I mean, they connected on the connected on the fake punt. Yeah. Mo Blackwell just didn't get the hand on the ball. You know what I mean? Yeah. That one. And then Bert Auburn misses 2 field goals. What do y'all think? Who won special teams, or were both teams kind of even with big plays? I mean,
I will say this. I think it's a tie. And I say this because Texas made plays, and then Texas also shot themselves in the foot. Okay? And what I mean by that is, you missed 2 field goals. That's got to get handled. And listen, kicker's got a tough job. I'm not going to sit here and act like I can do it, but that's your job. That's what you got to do. And so when there's miscues, you got to figure out how to fix that problem. Now, on the other side of the ball, Texas made those plays. It wasn't anything Arizona State. Arizona State didn't have any self-inflicted wounds, in my opinion. It was just plays that Texas made that, caused what caused. You also got to remember the penalty roughing the kicker, early in the game. But my tiebreaker to this is the second time late down the stretch that a fake punt has really hurt this Texas football team.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And by hurt, I mean resulted in an extended drive, resulted in points. I think that drive today it resulted in points, correct?
Yes. No, it was in the first half. It was in the first half, and Texas ended up. I think that's when they had the blocked field goal. I believe.
Yep. So it ended up blocked field. It would have resulted in points. Yeah. So, but either way, this is the second time now in recent weeks that a fake punt has come to bite you. Like, you should be prepared for that now. Now, I will give, once again, we're going to keep giving hats off to Arizona State. That was a hell of a fake punt play call.
It was nice.
Because even me looking at it, I'm like, if that was my guy, I don't know if I would have covered him. Like, I think he was coming to block me. Like, so hats off to them. But yeah, I think Texas needs to understand, like, you're going to get people's best shots. And especially from here on out, you've got some teams that are very serious. And you look at Ohio State right now. I want to talk about that real quick, getting off of here. I've looked at Will Howard in a totally different way this year from the way he's been at Kansas State. I've always thought Will Howard's been very inconsistent, but especially last week and from what it looks like this first half of this game, Will Howard is hitting on all strides, and Texas better get ready because Ohio State is looking very serious.
Yeah, they look like they may be the favorite to win it all right now. Frankly, they win this game against Oregon. I mean, who's gonna beat them? Texas will have a shot, but we'll see.
I said we just play in the first half for all the marbles.
But by the way, before you go, Brian, this is horrible. I don't know. A lot of people have been watching the game, and I know if you've been watching the game, you may not have heard it if you were in the actual Peach Bowl itself. But the Sugar Bowl has been postponed until tomorrow. We think because of the threat of terrorist attack. Something happened down there last night in New Orleans. It's just horrible. Guys, hold your loved ones tight, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
That. But anyways, Brian, thank you so much. Appreciate you, buddy. Bud. Talk to you all on the flip side, bud. Take care of yourself.
Appreciate it.
Have a good one. Later. Always love to hear from Brian post game. Rod, he always has such great things and insight to give us. All right, before we go and get back to the questions from fans, I want to say thank you once again to our sponsor. Each and every post game show this year has been brought to you by Flight, the next generation of light beer with only 95 calories. It's an upscale light beer designed to elevate the customer experience with more taste and just 4.2 grams of carbs. Flight is an easy-to-drink beer with a crisp taste. Try Flight from Yuengling, thanks to the fine folks at Flight and our friends over at Faust Distributing. They've been so helpful to us at On Texas Football. Rod, we've got questions coming in. We're going to have CJ here with us in a little bit. Let's start with KD35. I am the best. I'll give Cam his credit. I definitely need to. But no way does he pile up the numbers if he did, if the D was not on the field all day and the offense had the same intensity as that first drive, 2 plays, 77 yards. I think that was Arizona State's rust. That first drive. That was clearly, asking, we talked all week, is this taking a 3-week layoff going to affect them versus a team that's been playing? I think that was strictly rust. But Texas didn't possess. KD35's point is still accurate. Texas didn't possess the ball enough.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's it seemed to me they attacked that nickel early, right? The backup nickel behind Shamari Simmons. I think it was Montana Warren or something like that was his name. The touchdown was on him. That DeAndre Moore had early on, that second play of the game. And then the first play was actually to see how they adjusted to motion. They weren't sure it was a busted coverage by them where they were going to carry the motion of DeAndre Moore or going to bump it. And what they call just kind of bumping emotion, you bump all the coverage over just one guy. They weren't sure. They got a little discombobulated, and boom, that's why Matthew Golden ended up wide open on the RPO. So it's to me, to me, I'm with you. And that's why you had the busted coverage. Once they settled down, kind of got into their game plan, they really were effective defensively and limiting Texas. Like I said, Texas just relied on explosive plays because I think Sark knew they had the matchup advantages on the outside. I mean, the assumption was you'll hit more throughout the game, and they didn't. And then they didn't have enough plays to be able to take advantage of Arizona State too. So Arizona State's game plan, they were give them credit, man. They were faithful to that game plan because it didn't really show promise to the second half. The first half, I could see them kind of abandoning things and going, man, I don't know if this is going to work. But you're right, going for it on fourth down to stay on the field. They were the riverboat gamblers, right? They were really aggressive and taking chances. They weren't all paying off on fourth down, going forward and in the first half. But all this stuff started to pay off in the second half because they wore down the Texas D, and then their defense was able to finally get a turnover. And then ultimately their plan, like I said, they end up out-coaching Texas. Their game plan for the game was better than Texas' game plan for the game and looking at their offense. But ultimately, Texas made the most clutch plays down the stretch.
Got news for you, Rod. I think it's going to be 31-0 before half.
Are you serious?
8 minutes left in the second quarter. Absolutely. Huge run here from, I think, the Oregon fans are just crazy. So I will say this.
So is the rust factor? Is it rust? Is it rust?
I think it's.
I haven't watched it. Is it? I think
it's reading your own headlines a little bit, maybe. I think that's what it looks like to me right now because Ohio State's putting it on them. Double D, my heart rate is still high. I can't feel my legs. Go Horns. Me too. Burt Reynolds. We didn't deserve to win that game. I don't agree with that now. I'm going to say this, and I'll tell you why. You don't make a play on fourth and 13. I mean, Quinn Ewers took them down the field twice in the fourth quarter to kick a go-ahead field goal or a game-winning field goal. Then came back and made a play on 4th and 13, and then threw another touchdown as well as a 2-point conversion in overtime or second overtime.
Yeah,
I think Texas deserved to win the game. At the same time, I get what you're saying. We also got to admit, I mean, Arizona State threw everything in the kitchen sink at Texas. They had two different guys throw passes for 30-plus yards. One of them was a punter, and the other was the running back. I mean, they threw everything at Texas that they had.
Yeah, I think we all knew that, though, right? They had nothing to lose. So,
no, I know that's what I'm getting at. They really did that. JJ, holy F, that is all. I agree with you. William Niche, call me an a-hole. I don't care. 3-star ASU outperformed 5-star Texas. Third quarters become the Bermuda Triangle for Texas.
I like that.
Burt should walk back to Austin and portal himself. Guys, come on now. I know you're being facetious a little bit, but he did miss 2 key field goals. One wide right and one off the upright left. Jerry, Rod.
Well, don't we all know that Bert Auburn has issues when the ball's on the right?
He has issues everywhere now, though. It's seeped over everywhere.
Yeah.
Come on.
I thought they tried to get it over to the left hash, and Quinn tripped. Remember, he was trying to get it over there. I think they understood because they ran that play to the right side, and I think we were all saying on In-Game Live, watch, why'd you run it to the right? You got to get that thing on the left hash for Bert Auburn. And I think somebody had an ish moment on the sideline going, oh, guys, we need to get this thing on the left hash. We got like 6 seconds left. We got to get over there right now. And they tried to run over there, had the trip, and then, but I don't know. Like I said, that's no excuse. You got to make those kicks, man. That's your job. So no excuse.
All right, CJ Vogel joining us now from the floor of the Georgia. It's not the Georgia Dome anymore. It's the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Yeah. CJ, you listened to the post-game press conference. We're going to have that up for you on Texas football here in a little bit. What did Sark and the players, as well as even Arizona State guys, have to say about the game this afternoon?
Well, first off, what a game, huh? I mean, my goodness. I'm sure y'all have covered that, Bobby. I hope your heart rate's doing all right. But heck of a finish, For Sarkisian, it's been a consistent message that we've heard with this team, and he doesn't believe that the moment's ever too big with this team, and he mentioned that a couple times during his press conference. Obviously, when talking about Quinn Ewers, it's a lot more of what we've heard through the last 3 years, that cool, calm, collected approach from Ewers, and getting to speak with Matthew Golden a little bit about some of those big overtime moments. He said, yeah, Quinn's just as cool as a cucumber, basically, in that huddle. And it's funny listening to the defensive players who were on the sideline for that 4th and 13 touchdown say, oh, I mean, we were praying, man. We had no hope, backs against the wall. But that's much of what Sarkisian was echoing today, is essentially cool, calm, collected, and when their backs are up against the wall, they're battle tested in that regard.
They came away with it. CJ, other thoughts of the game for you, and not only Matthew Golden, but defense. Andrew Makuba comes up with a game-sealing pick. It looked like the pass rush slowed down a little bit in the second half, maybe because they were getting scatterbooed. And Levitt's 15 or 18-yard scamper on 3rd and 15 in overtime was huge as well. What did you think of the game overall, bud?
I'll be completely honest. I thought Sark was pretty outcoached today. I did not think this was a good coaching exercise for him. And it was pretty clear, right? There's no reason for you to be throwing a 50-yard pass when you're supposed to be running on a 6-minute clock, right? That game should have never been in overtime. Arizona State, I kind of feel for the Texas defense a little bit, because you see 31 points on the board and you're looking around saying, man, Scatterboo really came alive. Well, when you're on the field for 97 snaps, that's going to happen, and the time of possession was 38-22 in favor of Arizona State. Arizona State ran 40 more plays than the Texas offense. Now, that falls obviously on the offense, figuring out first downs, establishing drives, etc. But I was not happy with the coaching performance today by Steve Sarkisian.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Look, CJ, thank you so much for joining us. Any other things you want to add from hearing Trey Wisner, any of those guys talk in the postgame?
No, look, I think a lot of these guys are relieved that this flight back home to Austin is going to be a little bit more cheerful, right? They've made this trip back to Austin after being in Atlanta and losing in overtime before. This one, pretty different vibes there, but no, ultimately you survive in advance. That's the name of the game. That's the how this tournament's working right now, and that's where Texas is headed. Someone fill me in on this Oregon game, because I've not watched it down. I'm hearing it's ugly.
Yeah. It is 31-0 with 6 minutes left in the first and the second half and second quarter. Quarter, and guess what? Ohio State's driving right now.
What the hell?
Ohio State's already got the ball back again. Mike Gosdell, thank you, CJ. I'm going to take one question for you, CJ, here as well. Here we go, CJ. We don't match up well with Ohio State, in my opinion. What we did today is inexcusable, and we will get slaughtered. Are people giving up too soon now? I mean, I think that Texas will clearly not be favored in the game against Ohio State based on what Ohio State is doing here today, and where Texas got into second overtime with Arizona State. But I'm a little different. I think that Texas matches up okay with the Ohio State defense, which is strange because Jim Knowles is their defensive coordinator. Yeah. And Steve Sarkisian had problems with that Oklahoma State defense when he was there. But I think they actually have some familiarity, I guess is the best way to put it. Rod or CJ, y'all's thoughts? CJ?
I don't like the matchup with Ohio State, I'll be honest. I said coming into the year that I thought Ohio State had the most talented roster in all of college football, and obviously up 31-0. They're handling and figuring things out minus that Michigan game. Now the thing is with Ohio State, they're beatable, right? And they've been vulnerable in different ways, right? It was the defense, kind of struggled early on in the year, right? Ashton Jainty ran that's Oregon. But Ohio State, to me, still, I don't like it. I'm not a huge matchup guy in terms of favoring the Longhorns when it comes to Ohio State. I think that roster defensively will give Texas issues.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, hey CJ, you be safe. Be safe getting home, bud. We'll hear more from you on
Thank you guys.
All right. Yeah. This one. Jerry coming back in. Hey, Jerry.
Hey, what's up, Jerry?
We got to talk about it. Every time I look up, Ohio State's about to score.
Yeah, Will Jarvis. I think the O-line deserves a D- to an F in this game. Maybe. Brian Robison pointed out pass protection on that throw from Quinn to Matthew Golden in the first overtime. They held up on a double blitz up the middle that has troubled Texas all year. They got it right on that one. But in the last quarter and in overtime, a total of 4 false starts for the Longhorns offensive line. Not good in that regard, but Texas was unable to get the run going. I don't know if that was on the offensive line in particular or Sark's game plan and what he tried to do in the run game.
I think it could be a little bit of both, but I'll agree with Will for the most part. I think they probably had a very low grade, a D to an F. I mean, because considering they were supposed to be able to have their way in the run game with Arizona State, they did not. They were not able to execute their bread and butter run concept, which was the wide zone, and they couldn't even counter off of that with the power concepts against Arizona State. And then pass protection at times would break down. Now, they were sending a lot of guys and blitzing, but the pass protection at times would break down. Now, that could have been on Quinn because it's not all in the offensive line. Like you said, some of that could have been Sark's play calling, which didn't necessarily help them. But your line did not give you an advantage. And everybody who analyzed this matchup said, oh, instant advantage is Texas O-line and the big humans versus those very small humans on the other side of the ball who don't even have a 300-pounder, those poor little Arizona State Sun Devils who can't even recruit big D linemen. How are they ever going to be able to match up against Texas run game? And then we just watch. That's why they play the game. So, yeah, O-line, you failed. It's okay. It doesn't mean it's an indictment on you as an offensive line. You were a finalist for the Joe Moore Award. You're one of the best offensive lines in the country, and that's why you get a failing grade, because you are better, and we know you are better. We've seen it.
Hey, by the way, for the chat, I've got my Ohio State prediction ready. Ohio State beats Texas 52-23.
Damn, Jerry.
What are you doing? Arizona State. We had
that was my Arizona State prediction. That's good for Texas.
Yeah.
You got the prediction wrong on that one, bud. You were talking all week about how Texas.
Hey, damn right I was. Not my fault they didn't perform.
Woody Pettis, thank you for the super chat. John Roberts, Quinn has the confidence now. We're taking this all the way. He definitely had confidence in that overtime or the 2 overtimes and in late in the fourth quarter. All things considered, Quinn actually had a heck of a game down the stretch. 20 of 32 for 322 yards, 3 TDs, and 1 INT, plus 1 rushing TD. He's bipolar as a QB. It is what it is. I'll say this. After that interception, it looked like a different Quinn out there throwing the rock a little bit. He was throwing it more on a line than he had been all game long prior.
Yeah. I got to go back and look. I think some of that was Sark too, starting to dial up, certain plays and concepts that are kind of bread and butter. Because they tried to go to the stalk block and go, which is one of their favorite concepts down there. Sark kind of went back to what worked, which I think that's admirable. Because I always criticize Sark for that. Oh, real quick, we did have there it is, Austin Harris. I love this. Sun Devil here. We just wanted respect. I believe we earned it. Rooting for Texas to win the rest. Thank you, Sun Devil. Classy comment there. Classy comment. Yeah. Y'all got respect. Scatterboo. We told you guys about Sam Levitt. I didn't know Scatterboo was going to back up his trash talk like that. He said nobody stopped him. And you know what? He's still right. Maybe Texas State can brag about stopping him, a couple of teams, but not Texas can't brag about it. No. Yeah, who would have thought that he had a better game versus Texas than Texas State? Who would have thought?
Yep, that's absolutely right.
By the way, I want to say this. The first half of that game, when Scatterbo wasn't getting it going, Sam Levitt's feet kept Arizona State in the game. Even without scoring, his feet kept them in touch in the game. Because there were other teams Texas played this year, they'd had 4 or 5 sacks in the first half.
Easy.
And that thing would have gotten away from Sam Levitt made hellacious plays with his feet to keep Arizona State even in the game in the first half under duress.
They got a bowler. Yeah, he's a bowler. Yeah,
Dax Kelm saying Georgia's overtime experience was key. That's Texas's second overtime in 3 games. So maybe it was. I think that's a good comment there to think about there from Dax. Eddie Kane, hey Rod, it looked like Manny Muhammad was expecting help on the inside of Scadabo's throw. Safety seemed out of position. Hookem, great games. Did you see that, or what was Taft looked like he was trying to go up and
yes, that's a great. I gotta go look. I don't know what the coverage was they were trying to play at the time, so I gotta go back and look at it and see what the coverage was. That's a great point. He made a man turn. Man turns means I turn to my man. And remember, he didn't flip his hip to try to get on top of the receiver to stay on the upfield shoulder, which he was. And then it was underthrown, and the receiver wasn't in really good position. So I think he was erratic. Yes, he probably can blame it on. Maybe he expected help. But, man, that wasn't a great route, and it wasn't a great throw. And you're a great player. So you should have been on top of that. That's just the reality. It wasn't a great route, and it wasn't a great throw. And yet you still end up out of position. So, man, he'll look at the film and go, man, nobody should be able to complete a pass like that against me if your technique and your fundamentals weren't so flawed at the time. I think it was 4th and 2. The truth is, I thought they kept him. I think he was sleeping. I think he thought, just like everybody else, Scadaboo time, and they got him on the halfback pass.
Makes sense. All right. Hey, this one, Edmund Lee, is Bert Auburn returning next year? Hookem. According to Jeff Banks, who talked about it in the media days availability, I believe it was on Monday, Auburn is expected to return next year. I think he's going to have some off-season work because he's been a good kicker before.
Yes, he has.
He's got to get some work in and get this fixed, hopefully in the next 10 days or 9 days. John Trevino with a super chat as well. Thank you so much, John. Trevor Gentry, how do you coach a team to stop getting fooled by trick plays and fakes? Is it just a discipline thing? This goes back to Brian's comment about the 2 fake punts, one against Georgia now and also one against Arizona State, as well as the Scadaboo pass out of the 4th and 2 situation. What do you do there, Rod or Jerry, in y'all's opinion, to make it look a little bit more I don't know, keep a more discipline? Because they, like I said, I think teams are feeling like they have to throw everything at Texas they possibly can because the defense is so solid generally. Y'all agree with that?
I agree with that. And I think we said that before the game. We're like, he's going to throw it all at you. You're going to get everything. Now, does that mean that Texas should be susceptible to it? No, but they're not perfect. I mean, I know perfection is the goal. They're just not. Some of those are just as Mac Brown used to say, that guy's on scholarship too. They're just well-executed plays. I don't think the halfback pass should have been completed. I'll put that more on the DB than the execution. But that fake punt, that was a nicely executed fake punt, guys. Because the guys you expect usually an offensive lineman would be downfield, illegal man downfield there. They must have been real disciplined. They must have reminded them, don't go downfield because they didn't get that called. I didn't look at it to see if somebody was, but I don't think they had an illegal man downfield. They didn't hold on that play. Usually get holding on some play like that. It's good execution by them. But you're right. For Texas, definitely something you got to work on.
By the way, somebody asked in the chat who will be the home team next week. Texas is the higher seeded team, so they should be the home team in the Cotton Bowl versus Ohio State, barring the greatest comeback we've seen in the college football playoff, which is not going to happen.
Home team just means they get to choose the uniforms, all right?
Yeah.
That's basically all it means. So if I'm Texas, I'll take my icy white still. And I'm going to be home team anyway. In Texas, I want to look good. I'm not about looking how I look the best. You know what I mean? So I'll take the icy white to the house at home.
Hey, it's 4:20 somewhere. Question on that fake punt. How is it not illegal man downfield when the center was sprinting down the field before the ball was thrown? I didn't see that. I'll have to go back and rewatch. If he was, I think it's illegal unless there was nobody on his side on the line of scrimmage. Bobby Petronic does talk a little bit about what actually went on. It was a safe fake. He just fixed it if it's not there. That was the whole idea about rolling him right, in my opinion.
That was the punter who threw it, though, right?
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah. That was the same. That he had a great punt. I don't know if he did it or it was just good luck in the first half when Maurice Beckwell came to block it and he got it around him. I don't know how he got it around him. It really did. It seemed like he had made an adjustment to end up punting the football and then taking the run to the kicker. So, dude made some good plays out there.
This one from MJF. Bobby, great to meet you. And CJ at College Football Hall of Fame this morning. Nice to meet you, MJF. Destiny seemed against us, but clutch is clutch is clutch.
Yeah, I'm right.
I want to sit on this one for a little bit because 4th and 13, that ball game was over. Texas doesn't make that play. Quinn threw it in there. Golden made a secure catch. Golden comes back and makes a catch in overtime to get the 2-point conversion. If they wouldn't have got that 2-point conversion, there's no telling what that game looked like, guys. Because Arizona State knew they had to win or score and get the 2-point conversion. What did y'all think about it? Because I do think that the offense was clutch down the stretch. Special teams bit Texas twice in the fourth quarter. But offense overall in the late fourth quarter into overtime, they got the job done.
Yeah, I mean, look, I thought that was what I said earlier, and on the watch with us, that was huge moments for Quinn, getting and making the plays because it was on his arm. It wasn't going to be the run game, right, Rod? It wasn't going to be Quinn with his feet on the plays that you have to have. There's nothing designed for him, right? I mean, he had the touchdown run, so he has to make plays with his arm and his mind, getting Texas into the right plays too. But with his arm, whether it's predetermined reads or not, he has to deliver the football in a pressure situation. And fair or not, what was talked about a lot was the end of the Washington game last year when he had 3 shots in the red zone, right? Mm-hmm. This game, those last 2 drives for him, I don't care what happens after this. Those were huge for his legacy and him coming through for this team, for this program. Those are big moments for Quinn. So I thought, and Rod was saying it on the watch with us, players not plays. Players not plays. And Golden and Helm got to this point, and Golden, unbelievable player. Now, just an unbelievable football player. I mean, he's made – we also said who would replace the tough catches A.D. Mitchell made last year. Mm-hmm. Golden's made a lot of them. Oh, not being as big of a guy, has made huge catches. But congrats to Quinn because, honestly, in the first half, he missed a touchdown to Wingo. He underthrew the ball to Golden. They were getting behind guys. And at the time of the game, you're like, man, if he hits one of those for a touchdown, that game looks so different. It looks so different at halftime. But for him to come back, and it was a rough stretch there, while the numbers didn't show it was a rough stretch. It was a rough stretch. Then he had the interception thrown into double coverage, looked like a predetermined read. But to come back at the end for him, that was huge for Quinn. And you want the best for all these guys, no matter how we grade them in a good game or a bad game. But I was happy for Quinn, and I'd love for Burt to come back and make a field goal early against Ohio State just to make one, man.
Hey, speaking of that, Brad Davis, Burt Auburn better shave his head this week.
Anything to break out of a funk. How do you break out of a funk? If you're ask somebody, he's in a funk right now. It's all right. We know he's a good player. He's just got the yips, whatever it is. So whatever he's got to do to break out of it, do it, brother. Whatever. Shave the head. Do whatever. You're right. Maybe you got to shave the head. You got to do it. Do something, please.
Jay Lee says what really happened is we were looking past ASU. Amy Shalady. Colin Simmons is Michael Parsons cubed. Boy, he looked really good getting off the line of the scrimmage. He played really well too. Talented young man. Yeah. Extraordinarily talented.
I want to reply to something. I don't think Texas was looking past ASU. I think they just got beat.
No, they didn't get beat.
They didn't get beat, but I mean beat. They got beat for a large part of that game. Beat physically, right? Yeah. They got beat. Where they got beat was Arizona State controlled the entire game. They just didn't win the game. So the way Arizona State wanted the game to go and the way Texas wanted to go, Arizona State controlled that game. So Arizona State won in that regard. They didn't win the scoreboard. But, for a while in that game physically, Texas got beat up.
Especially the second half.
I don't think Texas overlooked Arizona State. I think Arizona State played maybe a more physical game, guys.
I think that they overlooked them in the run defense standpoint. I think Sark should have had more up his sleeve. And I will add this. Sark, when he thinks he's just going to run all over people, he doesn't throw the ball to the outside, to the backs. He started doing that in the fourth quarter. And all of a sudden, the Texas offense started moving.
As a supplement to the running game. Because he knew he could do it.
Yes. And it's not. Yeah. It's really simple. and you got to do it. All right, this one from Jonathan Forster. We won, but we absolutely did not look like a team that can win it all. Again, I asked why third quarter is our kryptonite.
I don't know.
Rod, you've conjectured this as long as I've known you, and Sark is not as long as I've known you, but as long as Sark's been the coach, this is not a new thing. It started 4 years ago.
Yeah, his third quarter has been second half been issues, but the last you've been outscored. I think it's 43 to 6. Excuse me, in the last 6 third quarters. I think now, though, it is worth, at least in the offseason, because you can't do anything about it now. It looks like it's just going to be an issue this season to start to end the season. But it is worth him studying. Like he went into an in-depth introspective about red zone last year. I think it's worth studying, like what's going on at halftime with your team in the third quarter. Your fourth quarter, I mean, you're doing pretty good. Came out and made some clutch plays. That third quarter, though, it's strange. It's like you're cursed at this point. I can't even explain it. It's weird, man.
All right, this one from Josh Marquette. I am so drunk. Sark let these guys hang around. He did indeed, in my opinion, by not throwing to the flat, by not getting some ball. 38 minutes to 22 minutes. I'm sure it's been done before in college football history, but not in a game I've followed that I remember where a team had 22 minutes of possession and still won.
That's what I was talking about, Bobby. I mean, like somebody in the chat replied, no, Arizona State didn't control the game. They had the ball 13 minutes in the first quarter and 13 minutes in the third quarter. Yeah, they controlled the game. It doesn't mean you're up in the scoreboard, but they controlled the game. If they're designed for the game, they got out of it what they wanted to get out of it. They just weren't ahead on the scoreboard, but they did everything they had to make it a game. I guarantee you this, if Texas had 38 minutes of possession and Arizona State had 22, this game would have been a 30-point win for Texas.
Yeah.
All right, Chris Jackson here. I took a shower after we tied it at 31. How could you do that? I was pacing. Enjoy the journey. Get rid of entitlement. We are 13-2. Don't let a natty determine your joy. Enjoy the journey. Man, that is so easy to say. But when it was 4th and 13, I don't know if I was saying those exact words. I'll just do that way. ATX Texas, always thanks for the super chat. We appreciate you. Does anybody know this answer for Derek Smith? Because I didn't catch it during the game. What conference were these refs from? They missed a lot of calls on ASU. That scramble play before overtime, ASU definitely had an illegal man downfield. Yeah, he was in the end zone. And you take the extra point from the third, from the 3.
I didn't see that.
It's definitely downfield. But here's the question I had: Texas, no holding calls on ASU. Okay, all game long. That's not possible. Just want to say that. None on Texas either, by the way, that I remember. Not offensive holding.
No.
That's not what, again, we talked about the difference in referee, and I think this may have been Big Ten or ACC refs. I don't know if we have that answer. Matt, our producer, may be able to get us that answer if he looks it up. I'll look for it a little bit later. But thanks for the super chat, Derek. We'll look into that, see if we can talk about it. ATX always. In the OU game, they were praising Quinn for 2.2 seconds ball get off. What is the reason for the 4 to 5 second throws now? It's a fair question. Maybe the style of defense they're playing against is part of it. Jerry or Rod, what do you think?
He went to the quick passing game, to your point, Bobby, in the second half. They started going more to like a quick passing game. I think that's Quinn's strength. I think Quinn does struggle at times throwing the ball 15-plus yards downfield, intermediate to deep range, whether it be accuracy you're talking about or whether it be throwing guys open and anticipatory throws. It's interesting that Sark didn't go to the quick, short passing game earlier, which is kind of the extension of the running game, because that's where Quinn excels. So maybe that's something that he could have went to boost it a little bit early on. But Quinn, essentially go look at it, and Matt did the research for me because I thought off the top of my head that it was right. 130 of Quinn's passing yards, guys, came on just 4 plays. The first 2 plays of the game and the last 2 plays of the game. And I believe that's 3 touchdowns, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So 3 of your touchdowns came on 4 plays, the first 2 and the last 2. And they were just big, explosive plays.
right.
So,
This would, it's big. I mean, that's what it is, Rod. DD Cope talking about Ewers here, Rod, as we were mentioning it earlier. Ewers watched his kicker miss 2 field goals and throw an interception, but he came back and faced the adversity to win the game at the end. This is talking about what Jerry said, what his legacy will be. This game will be a piece of that legacy very much.
Yeah,
because Texas's back, not just his back was against the wall. Texas's back was against the wall, and Quinn Ewers made those throws.
okay.
And the second overtime throw to Gunnar Helm, stepped up into the pocket, and then the throw to Matthew Golden as well in overtime were fantastic. Quinn put the cape on from a culture warrior. Could not agree more. And that's
I did that. Yeah, overtime. He did.
Yeah, he
hey,
did.
look,
it.
I want to say this again because I think this is important. Like, we come on here and talk about the games, the good and the bad, the chat, the good and the bad. The end games are so much fun with all these guys, as Rod sees, because it's the roller coaster of emotions. But
It really is.
well, here's what matters from a recruiting perspective and a Texas program perspective. They just won another game in the playoff. They're in the Final Four for the second year in a row. So no matter what we think when we talk about a player, position, or all that stuff, the bigger picture for all the recruits watching this game, they saw a hell of a game that Texas pulled out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Young kids won't look at it like a 55-year-old or
right.
I don't want to really reveal y'all's ages, but you're younger. You're both younger than me. They won't look at it that way. They'll look at it. They just watched a hell of a game and Texas won. I agree. Hey, I've got some stats for you guys to put up here. Rod, to your point, let me give you this. Quinn Ewers in the final 5 minutes of regulation and the 2 overtime periods. 11 of 14 for 161 and 2 TDs.
There you go. Clutch.
That's big
clutch.
time.
That's clutch.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I have some more questions to get to here as well. Let me see. Where is this? Oh, Quinn. His final 14 passes, I guess. The interception was 1. But look
how he bounced back, though. That's a nice bounce.
He really did bounce back extremely well. Extremely well. All right. Let's see here. I'm trying to get through all these super chats, guys, just to make sure we can do it and get everybody in. Tubin in Texas. What is the worst loss by a number 1 team? I don't know, but I think that it's 34-7 at half.
Yeah.
Or if
34-8.
34-8.
Yeah.
34-8. Okay, so they got the 2-point conversion. There's that. Keep going here, and I'm sorry if I'm missing some here. The problem with the Texas, this is from sports fan Jack. The problem with the Texas offense, in my opinion, is the fact that they don't have a single elite offensive player outside of Kelvin Banks. I gotta say this. Did y'all notice in the pregame they were calling Cam Williams a top 20 pick?
Yeah, this is your definition.
It would be nice to get him back, by the way.
Yeah, Rod said, what's the definition of elite? Is it a top 10 pick? Is it a top 5 pick? Is it a first round pick? I mean, what that kind of depends on your definition of elite.
Agreed. That's kind of what I want to do. But I don't disagree with you, John, saying what's their definition of elite? Are we talking about just a guy drafted in the first 2-3 rounds? Like,
I think he's probably talking about a top 10 pick.
Oh, well, then that's hard for anybody to have.
Well, I will say this. Scatterbo is an elite college player.
That's
and
right.
He's not a top 10 pick. He ain't a
no, but does Texas have an elite college player on offense outside
other than Kelvin Banks? Probably not.
Second half of the year, Matthew Golden's been pretty close.
He's been, and Helm was at the first part of the year. I think Helm was trending toward that way, and it slowed down a little bit. But he's probably right about that. If you consider elite to be All-American, who's your All-Americans on offense? Who are the All-Americans?
But look, is Golden Jeremiah Smith? No. If that's what your definition of elite is, agree with that.
Yeah, and I would add this. You mentioned that Gunnar Helm, by the way. I think that Quinn got going when he completed that pass to Gunnar Helm over the middle. Yes. Before he threw the stepped up and threw the one in the second overtime. Mm-hmm. That's when Quinn, I think, really got his bearings and started moving the football a little bit. All right, got some other questions here or comments. AS 85, 2 games in a row with 2 misses, and almost cost us both games. It did cost them the game in Georgia in the same stadium. I don't think Bert Auburn wants to be back in Mercedes-Benz Stadium anytime.
I hope he wants to be one more time.
Yep. Jeff Carey saying Sark's halftime adjustments are obviously poor, resulting in horrible third quarters. I don't know that he's making halftime adjustments. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude. I mean,
he came out and play action pack, turn Quinn's back to the defense the first play of the third quarter.
Yeah. He needs to improve his game prep. I think he will improve, but he needs it. He has the rest of the job down. That's a good point there. This from Todd Lazy. And he's correct in this. Texas usually responds after a poor performance. Expect them to be ready in Arlington. He's right, guys.
He did. Right. But I will say this, as you play better teams, though, and I actually like it because I have faith and confidence in our team that they will be up to the task. Your defense, you see during the season, I kept describing the season as an open book test. The defense is good. They were great. But they hadn't really truly been tested by teams who have an elite identity and elite personnel to back it up. And the last 2 weeks, best quarterbacks you played, elite personnel, and you're like, man, how did Kate Klubnik have that many yards against our pass defense? And how did Scottaboo end up having that many yards? It's like that's what happens when you have it's not an open book test anymore. These are actually championship caliber teams that have elite identities. They know who they are offensively, not Mississippi State. They know the hell they want to. I mean, these teams know who they are. So that's awesome. Don't be freaking out about the defense. I just think this is what happens the deeper you get into the season, the better teams you play. Period.
Hey,
and I would say this,
Jerry, real quick. I'm going to do 2 things from Eric Mitchell. Sorry about that. ASU also had over 3 weeks to prepare.
Yep,
that's legitimate. They absolutely did. And then Eric also asked this that I thought was pretty telling, and it's a comment, actually. Props to the defense. They were on the field a ton, yet they were the ones also that put the game away.
Yeah.
Where they had the Kubas pick.
The only thing I'd say
by not being baited by eye candy in that route. He just stuck on it. You know? So, veteran move. Eric, thanks for the super chat because I agree with you. They 97 plays, I think it was, 37 plus minutes of game time.
See how that affects Texas in January 10th, by the way. That's a lot of plays to be. I don't care if you have 8 days off or not. That is a lot of plays on the field for a team when the normal is 72, 73. By the way, I'd say the 3 weeks to prepare, I get the point. Oregon had it too. They're on 34-8. Boise had it too. I mean, so I don't know. I think it helps, but is it an end-all, be-all? I don't know. Where I do think it helps is the running backs, Jainty and Scatterbo. Those guys are going to be beat up, and they both said I have fresher legs, feel like I have fresher legs. So maybe that helped those guys. The other thing I wanted to say about the Texas defense is the one thing we've said all year, but I just think this is true in general. A really good quarterback is worth 7 to 10 points a game. I don't care how good your defense is, Rod. And Texas has played 2 guys that have a really good chance to play on Sunday. I think that's worth 7 to 10 points a game to start.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. I'm with you on that.
All right. This one from Taylor Johnson. I'm tired of Muhammad throwing his hands up, especially when he had the opportunity to intercept the pass. Manny, look, cornerbacks, Rod, are a rare breed, and no one knows that better than Rod Babers.
I just think I think he was distracted and he assumed they were going to run the football, and he was not focused on that rep. I think that was pretty obvious because he's better than that. The underthrown ball, usually, for him, that's a no-brainer.
Hey, guys, this may be an interesting discussion at some point this coming week. I don't want to get into it too far today in the postgame, but AS85, whoever wins UT OSU seems like a de facto champ to him. What do you think?
Wow. Yeah.
Penn State playing pretty strong right now, though.
Yeah.
You think Penn State?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's de facto, but I definitely think they'll be the favorite team coming out of this bracket, this side of the bracket.
Oh, whoever wins, Texas Ohio State will be the favorite.
Yes.
You agree with that, Jerry, at least?
No doubt.
I maybe. I mean, maybe.
We'll be right back here in Atlanta.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if they happen to play Georgia, if somebody can make Texas the favorite over Georgia, maybe. And I'm just saying from a betting side. I'm not saying from a game side. Yeah, I don't know. I think Ohio State playing the best football? It looks like it right now.
Yeah.
But we just have to see what happens with Georgia Notre Dame tomorrow at 3 p.m. Somebody said that. But I think any of these teams could win the thing. I think Ohio State looks like they're playing the best, though.
I want to add this fact and just put it out there for everybody. Let's make Jerry World burnt orange.
Oh, yeah. Ohio State's going to travel for that game.
Ohio State is got a great fan base. They will travel. I'm telling you now, make it a home game for the Longhorns in Dallas.
By the way,
get there and do what you can. Freelance Society saying, will OTF tailgate next game? Absolutely will. We have already been talking about it at length and what we're going to do. And then he also asked, any holding calls in the game and prayers for New Orleans? Horrible incident there last night. Obviously, something that has caused the game to be delayed until tomorrow. As far as holding calls, Freelance, we already talked about this briefly. There were not any offensive holding calls, I think, on either team in this game, which seems miraculous to me somewhat as well. Daniel Earp, is it true, Jerry, that you're hitting the portal for Ohio? That since Oregon now is out of it, our friends tease Jerry a little bit that he's a Oregon fan in disguise. Tito Enrique, bottom line, QE3 made the plays he had to make. Completely agree. Corey, man, Bert has the yips. He sure does. I was texting with a former Texas kicker, by the way, in the post game. He says he's overcorrecting is what's happening right now.
Okay.
So he's overcorrecting right now.
For the golfers, if you open up right and you come out of a driver, you're either going to duck hook it or you're going to push it right. Same thing's happening to Bert Auburn right now. If he opens that left shoulder and he comes out of that kick, he's either going to overcorrect and hook it or he's going to push it right. Same thing.
KD35, the ref today was worse than Kevin Marr. It was a Big Ten referee crew, by the way. And we've talked about that, how they are not big holding call folks, in my opinion. This one from Jay Panel. I'll ask you this, Rod. What running concepts did we run that didn't work? Outside zone clearly was bottled up all day long. Could never uncork that.
Yeah, wide zone is Texas' bread and butter run concept. They run it at a top 10 rate in the Power 4, usually around 11 to 12 times per game. I don't know how many times they ran this game, but it didn't work. I doubt they made it to the 11 number because I don't know if it worked that much. So I think they ran some inside zone. I think they tried some power concepts. They didn't have the ball a lot either. So the run game just didn't work. They couldn't spread. I always say if the outside zone's not working for Texas, the wide zone, there's not a lot that works for them. That is really what they lean on. And when you stop that, you really cause kind of a log jam in the running game for them. They just can't figure things out. They don't have an effective counter to it yet.
By the way, Bobby, you watched the South Carolina-Illinois game. Wasn't it Kevin Marr's crew that ref that game?
Yes. Yeah.
So since Big Ten and SEC playing, it's either going to be an ACC or Big 12 crew.
That's true. For the Cotton Bowl. Yeah.
So it may be Kevin Marr or it's going to be an ACC crew.
Oh, if it's Kevin Marr, oh man. At least I didn't run into Brett Yormark this week. That makes me feel a little bit better. Hey, Jay Panel asked a follow-up here, Rod. How do you think they can improve it for next Friday? Any thoughts, different play calls, different types of things that they're going to try to do to Ohio State, maybe?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know Sark's got a lot of obviously a lot of experience with the 3 high. That essentially is what Jim knows and Ohio State run. They're going to run their version of 3 high. It's the most physical version of it in the country. So don't think it's not like Iowa State's 3 high. You're like, oh, I just run it down their throat because we have the numbers advantage. It ain't like that. They got guys coming downhill. So it's going to be interesting to see. I got to go back and do some research for Texas. Usually power concepts work pretty well, but gap schemes work pretty well, but this is Ohio State. This ain't some Big 12 team. So they got the big bodies to match up with if you want to come try to run downhill on them. So I got to do some research for you. I don't want to just throw it out there. I got to go see what has worked for Texas against Jim Knowles. But even at his time in the Big 12, that doesn't necessarily matter because he didn't have the bodies and the athletes he's got now at his disposal with Ohio State. That's a different Jim Knowles defense than the one
he's got the best. He's got the best safeties in the country. Those guys are unbelievably good.
By the way, he had a good defense at Oklahoma State. He was also one of the best in the country. Now he's got the best athletes in the country to match with one of the best schemes in the country, guys. It ain't going to be
Georgia had the best linebackers Texas had faced in the game. Ohio State's going to have the best safeties by far. I mean, they are really, really good. Ransom and Caleb Downs. Woo, they're really good now.
NFL guys.
Here's a question from Jordan Bonner. Is DJ Campbell the problem on the O-line? I don't think he is. I think it's Connor, but they always sub him out for Cole Hudson. So he must be, right? I want to say this. My understanding, and this is talking to some folks post-game, is that, or actually texting a little bit, they were calling out Texas's signals in the fourth quarter because they knew them ahead of time and what they were doing. And that was getting guys that maybe hadn't played as much, like Cole Hudson, like Trevor Gooseby, off a little bit. Even Kelvin Banks had issues there. It's hard to say what the problem is on the O-line because, frankly, they're 13-2.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, let's one game does not make a season in so many ways. This is the same offensive line that rushed for whatever they did a week ago or a week and a half ago against Clemson. So while, Rod, you put this a good way, I thought, earlier in this conversation. You said, look, they can have a passing grade for the whole season, but they may have a failing grade for this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, not everybody's perfect. But overall, the offensive line has not been a problem. And I don't know that DJ Campbell or anybody has been a problem. Today, they just got beat. They got out. I don't know about out physical. I think out quicked is really what happened. And Arizona State put people in the box. They were 7 and 8 in the box all game long. All game long. So that also opened up the pass for Quinn in overtimes to do that. So something to consider there.
That's a good point.
All right, guys, I think we got through all of the super chats. Here's one. Start with Bobby McConaughey has something. I love you, Bobby. Start by not handing off 8 yards deep in the end zone.
Everybody does that, though. Everybody does that, I will say. Nobody gets under center. By the way, Arizona State got under center because they got Scatterboo. So they want to run downhill on you. Not a lot of people get under center in college. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, but that was obviously after a big we do need to say this about because we didn't put enough on it, I think. The defense did play a great game for the first 3 quarters.
Yeah.
And then I think they really did. I mean, they had 5 points going into the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that? I mean, that's a hell of a game by your defense.
Yeah.
And so hats off to those guys and a number of fourth down stops. But and also they made the play to win the game. The final play with Anthony.
Hey, today, what does Arizona State sign Dillingham to? Does he get the contract? Is it this week?
Signed a 5-year extension this morning. But
did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, they did it already. They're like, oh, we already know. We know. Okay. Smart move.
Absolutely. Says, nope, one more. I'm not sure what that meant, but I'll check it out. Salute to Stark from Kyle Vachoska. I would much rather take back-to-back Final Fours than the pre-Sark era.
Oh, God. Yes. Oh, yeah. No doubt. We are grateful for Sark for that. No
if
doubt.
y'all think, hey, I will say this. I'm gonna say this, okay? So I've known Jerry Hamilton for 25 years. Okay. If you think Jerry Hamilton is hard on this team, you got nothing. You haven't seen the 2010s now.
I can imagine. Oh, man.
Jerry just threw up his hands and said no. All right. Hey, That's going to do it for the post-game show. Thank you all for joining. Jerry, thanks for stepping in. Brian Robison joined us earlier. Rod B, as always, you're the man. I appreciate you and appreciate everyone here talking a little Texas football. Been a fun day doing that. Also, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, the folks at Flight by Yingling, and our friends over at Faust Distributing. Just tremendous folks to work with. We appreciate them very much. All right. That's going to do it for the post-game show. We got more stuff coming tomorrow morning. We got coffee and football. We got rapid reactions. We also have the post-game press conferences from the coaches for you on Texas Football's YouTube channel and podcast. It's available both places. For Jerry, for Rod, for Brian Robison, as well as our producer, Matt Hudson and CJ Vogel, I'm Bobby Burton. You guys have a good one. Texas headed to the Final Four. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.